Howdy ho everyone, welcome back. It's Tuesday. We have two issues today we want to look at. Not sure how long they will take. I carved out 30 minutes for the first 20 minutes for the second one if I remember correctly. Find out. Who wants to get started on this one? Eve or
I can do so, but is Ilya, are you the one who's implementing this? Because if it's your API proposal, perhaps you should describe it.
I can go ahead and describe the API I would like to introduce. You can start from background and motivation for this API. The reason we decided to introduce this API is a bug that was reported by Steve. And the bug is described at the beginning of this comment. And in essence, the bug is the following. We, in one of the packages in .extensions repository, provide so-called standard resilient handler, which allows extend functionality of HTTP client with automatic resilience strategies like retries. You register HTTP client and then register standard resilient handler for that. And as a result, when you, for example, make some HTTP request and it fails because of some transient error, this standard resilience handler makes automatically, for example, retries for this HTTP request. And the issue that was reported by Steve was that we currently automatically do retries for all HTTP methods, both idempotent and non-idempotent. If you could scroll up, you can see how this issue can be, and a little bit. In the first code sample, you can see how we can register this HTTP client and then standard resilience handler. And there is one more overload that accepts options object and allows you to register additionally configure resilience options. While this could be an issue that we automatically do retry for all HTTP methods, we don't want to make changes to this default behavior because of two reasons. The first one is that in general we think that we cannot make assumptions about idempotency of APIs based on HTTP methods being used to access those APIs. And second reason is that this would be unpleasant behavioral change for our existing customers that already rely on this functionality. So as a compromise solution to this issue, we decided to introduce new API that will allow to easily disable our default behavior, meaning we will be able to easily configure standard resilience handler not to make retries for non-idempotent or unsafe HTTP methods. And the API we are proposing, it can be found a little bit down. If you could scroll, please. So what we want to introduce is two extension methods on HTTP retry strategy options object that allow users to disable making retries for HTTP methods. The first method is disable for unsafe HTTP methods. Disables retries for a list of HTTP methods that are considered unsafe, meaning that they are non-read only, and the the result of making retries to the backend using this HTTP methods could be harmful. This is the first method we want to introduce, and another one is disable for, which accepts a list of HTTP methods that will not, for which we don't want to make automatic retries. So this is to have some flexibility and allow users to define what HTTP methods they want to make retries for, and they don't. So this is the API we want to introduce, and below you can find how it can be used. So when registering contact resilience handler, you will need to invoke this one of these methods, disable for unsafe HTTP methods or disable for on retry property of the options object. Yeah, this retry property, it allows to configure how retry strategy will behave. So this is the API usage. And while we were discussing this API, we also were considering alternative design. Yeah, one of the feedback we received at the beginning of discussion was that we would probably want to consider introducing top-level API, meaning it will be on HTTP client builder object. And as a result of this discussion, we were considering introducing these three methods at standard resilience handler that that are all overloads of existing at standard resilience handler method, and the only difference these overloads bring is that they have one more parameter which lists this non-idempotent or unsafe HTTP method. Yeah, if you scroll right a little bit in this code sample, you will find this additional argument. Yeah, this params HTTP method, and that allows users to set which HTTP methods are considered idempotent or not. And the usage would be as simple as providing a list of HTTP methods that are considered unsafe to the at standard resilient handler. Yeah, in this line. Yeah, but while we were discussing this alternative design, we came up with a couple of downsides that are specified here. Yeah, the first one is that we have to duplicate each overload of at standard resilient handler method with this additional argument. And the other downside is that this list of non-idempotent HTTP methods, it affects only retry strategy of the standard resilience handler, but the standard resilience handler, it also includes other strategies as part of it, and this HTTP method will not affect it. So the problem we see here is that we pass an argument that affects only one strategy instead of the whole resilience handler. And yeah, one more downside I realized is that we use a retry strategy also in another handler here, which is not mentioned in this issue, which is called hedging handler. And this hedging handler, it also uses retry. Actually, not. I'm wrong. No, disregard my last comment. So that's it. That's the API we want to introduce, and the alternative design we have. So, any objections or any questions?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I have a couple questions. I'm not super familiar with the API design of the rest of the resilience APIs. because I think last time I looked at it has been a while ago and I've never used it myself. So for all these options, like once you call, either of those methods, like where's the result observable data-wise, or do we not expose any options on the actual options instance that would tell you which methods were marked as disabled for? You know what I'm asking, or am I not making sense?
Yeah, actually, I would like to ask you elaborate a little bit. I don't understand the question fully.
So the options, so these are extensions methods that get invoked on this options in. So my question is, I'm looking at the options instance. It doesn't seem like there's any APIs that would tell me which of those methods are actually unsafe. So is the idea that these are all private implementation details on how this data is being stored, so people only ever use these extension methods? Or is the idea that the extension methods are basically just helpers set that state up on the options type?
Yeah, at the moment we don't propose to introduce such kind of API. Yeah, we came up with this list of unsafe HTTP methods from the RFC specification that states that these HTTP methods are unsafe, and decided to introduce this method for disabling exactly for unsafe HTTP methods. Yeah, we were also considering introducing method for non-idempotent HTTP methods, which are only put E and delete. But while we were discussing, we decided that it would be better to introduce for unsafe because they are not read-only, and even though they are idempotent, meaning that they do not that you can make retries and that will not change the state of the backend, they could be harmful to the backend. Therefore, we want.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to these methods per se. Like, I guess what I'm asking is much simpler. Is like once these methods are executed, right? They're changing the state of this options type somehow. And all I'm asking is the idea that people can never read. So basically, the complete options state effectively is private, and people only ever use these extension methods. Or are these extension methods just helpers to effectively, I don't know, add certain verbs, for example, to action or something? I guess what I'm asking is, if you have these, if you only have these methods, then if you only have disable, like how would I ever add something back, for example, or how do I make it enabled, or how do I log what was set, right? All of those questions, I guess.
Or how does a third-party implementation know that these methods were called and should not perform retry in their override of your class?
Yeah. Now I understand. Yeah, actually, after you call any of these methods, you will not be able to define which of these methods were called and which HTTP methods were registered as non-retriable or non-safe. Yeah, these methods, they are kind of helpers to set up a property which is used to define whether we want to make retries or not. And yeah, this methods, what they essentially do, they extend that property, which is a func that accepts HTTP response message and returns true or false based on this HTTP response message. So yeah, the answer is that users will not be able to define which HTTP methods they are not making retries for. And we don't have any collection that stores this list of HTTP methods we are not making retries for.
Is the resilience namespace / package / whatever generally expected to support third-party extensibility, or is it intended to be a sealed unit? Because
Yeah, I
resilience
believe,
handler is not declared sealed, so someone can override it, which means they should be able to see these options.
resilience handler is like more generic abstraction, which could be used to define any kind of resilience handler. And that standard resilience handler we are talking about, it is like a specific setup for that resilience handler.
Yeah,
So
just
if
clicking
someone
to the
decides,
other, yeah, just clicking through all the options type in that namespace, they are all empty. As far as
they are deriving from the corresponding options object from another library, from Poly. And what we are currently doing is we are setting a property which is called should handle, which defines when we want particular strategies to be executed or not. And essentially what these two methods, disable for unsafe HTTP methods and disable for, will do, they will just add additional predicate for that should handle property. So that in addition to the HTTP, in addition to the logic we use to define transient errors for HTTP request, we will also add this logic that will exclude non-idempotent or non-safe HTTP methods from retry strategy.
Right. So I'm a little unwary about the word unsafe. I see it is mentioned in the RFC that's cited there, but generally in .NET, unsafe either means pointers are involved, or we also use it to mean we're abandoning synchronization context or execution context, or one of the Steve and Tobe APIs. So I'm not saying it's bad and I don't have another word here. I'm just uneasy about it and wonder if anybody else feels the same.
I mean, if we would have left unsafe unqualified, yes. But given that it's suffix with HTTP methods, it seems pretty clear that it's literally for, like, it's an adjective to the thing that is directly after it. To me, that's very specific.
Fair enough.
And given that it is the RFC nomenclature, I think that makes.
Yeah, this safe unsafe terminology we took from RFC. Yeah, they also say that safe, it means read-only, but they don't use read-only word to describe these HTTP methods. But
right. Though I do think that the RFC says safe and unsafe is in the context of caching. That it is not safe to cache the answer of a put, but it is safe to cache the answer of a get. And so I do believe you are taking the thing they've said and stretching it to a new context. But maybe I misread the RFC.
I always thought that it means like it's safe to call versus not safe to call because it doesn't have side effects.
I mean, fair enough. I saw it said something about HTTP spiders.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like when you have a web crawler, you see a delete, maybe don't invoke that. Yeah, I don't
Fair
have
enough.
any. I don't have any. I mean, it seems like the proposed design makes sense. The wording makes sense. It's always a bit weird to me that because I mean, it seems like all of these extension methods, the way they act, very specific. So I never quite know which one returns something, which ones doesn't. I assume these ones don't chain the way it is.
currently we do not propose this HTTP these methods to return HTTP retry strategy options and being able to be chained just because we don't have other. But yeah, we could.
I mean, it's mostly one of those things where, you know, yeah, you don't have them right now. If you add 4 more methods at some point, well, you can't go back and change the return type. But
most of the BCL is not fluent. Are the options types usually fluent?
most of the builders and extensions are, as far as I can tell. But that's what I'm saying. It's not like super uniform. Yeah, I don't have strong opinions. I mean, that kind of completely depends on how this is being used. But looking at the sample code here, I mean, this is the part that I think is mostly fluent, right? You say dot add, and then I guess you could continue here with another dot add. I think this part is almost always a statement body where you don't.
And I will say I do like the presentation and the proposed API that the things that you're passing in are to a method called disabled, because the alternative design suggestion is actually negative. The example says add a resiliency handler, and then you tell it post and patch. That makes it look to me like you're adding it only for post and patch when you're adding it for everything except those. Just below your cursor, the sample usage call.
Yes, I would agree with that. That's very unintuitive. And then based on the explanation, my understanding was that this would not cover everything, versus this is covering everything, but this is what we're going with, right?
Yeah.
I think it was that it was only going to apply to the retry half, and now it's clearer because you're only doing it on the options.retry. So.
Okay, it still applies to the same thing. It just makes it clearer what it is. Yeah.
And there's no functional difference between calling disable for and specifying the, I'm just going to guess and say 7 HTTP methods and calling the disable for unsafe. It's just an accelerator of that list.
Yep. There is no difference.
Okay, so if somebody uses a custom verb, you're going to retry it because they didn't explicitly ask it to be disabled.
In terms of params, Jeremy, do you have already made up your mind on how we're going to use that moving forward?
Oh, of like
would you prefer?
Do we want it to be span or array or what?
Span, array, IEnumable, I collection, I read only collection. I mean, anything that is a collection you can use. But I think also you guys have to support .NET 6 still.
Yeah, we currently do.
According to this, their package is supported in framework, but not standard.
Sorry, yeah, you go all the way. That's right. Yes. Never mind. Then you are stuck with.
Yep. Then that's what they get.
And it's also not the hot path. So, I mean, you run this once per application.
I feel like the last time we were talking about params, or maybe it was when I was talking about params with Fred, it was given the square bracket notation, making passing things as params easier, that if we didn't already have it in the language, we probably wouldn't add it to this point. And therefore, for the BCL perspective, we may never add another params method again.
I don't think that.
I said we may.
Why would we never add a params method again?
Because it's easy enough to just put the square braces and then not have to put it at the end.
Yeah, but there's a behavioral difference in some cases, or a performance difference.
Yeah, I mean, we'd still have to consider things.
I mean, we literally just added params to a whole bunch of read-only span APIs in the last release. there's a convenience aspect of being able to just do comma A, comma B, comma C. I don't know why we would stop doing that.
Fair enough.
I mean, the one argument
must have been with Fred.
that he just said is true, though. Like, I mean, parems doesn't compose, right? Parems always has to be at the end. You can only have one parems. And
Yeah, I think we would.
You could have two arguments, and they're very convenient.
I think we would stop playing games to be able to add params, but where params naturally works, I think we would just use it.
Yeah, that's what I would. Maybe we wouldn't do the overloads anymore with 1, 2, 3, 4 because and solves for you.
Yeah, we might, but yeah.
It would be less obvious now.
Why would you still do them? Out of curiosity? I mean, it should not impact profit at all, right?
Yeah, it can be a little cheaper.
It depends on if you have like if count is 1, go do this easy version of a thing. Well, if they call the overload that has 1, you didn't need the else body.
Yeah.
So it can let things dead code fold.
There's a small amount of overhead associated with, accessing putting the element into a span and taking it out of the span. It's not big, and if the API you're talking about is already chunky, then it's not a big deal. But if it's a fast thing, then there could be benefits. But it's it's not a big deal.
Then I think that's it. I mean, anything else to say about this API? Oh yeah, one question I had is like, do we change default, or at the default still everything is enabled by default?
We don't change defaults.
Can I, on that point, I understand that we would change the default for new applications in the sense that we would change the default project template to enable this. That's my understanding anyway. From my point of view, this is useful if and only if we change the default project template. Like if we don't change the default project template, we might as well not do this. So we really, really have to definitely change the default project template. Do the people who own the project template for Aspire, like, have they seen this API shape and have they signed off on adding this code to the default template? Because this, yeah, I consider this to be only successful if it goes into the default template.
Presumably the thing we would put in is the accelerator though, right? Right, the one that says unsafe rather than listing them all.
Yes, exactly, yeah. I don't expect any particular pushback, but I just think that, like, knowing that it will be agreed is an important prerequisite for any design.
I mean, changing defaults is painful, but I mean, I always ask the question now because we can change defaults, right? And we have changed defaults, so it depends how bad do we think the default is, right? Do we really think that for almost all apps that is the correct answer?
If we're changing the defaults, then this API is the wrong API because this lets you turn something off without turning it back on.
Well, that part I get, but I'm saying it's like, I don't quite understand the original bug report that Steve had, but like if the intention is, for almost all the apps, you never want to retry any of those things, then basically forcing everybody to put this in the project template purely because you made a bad decision in one release seems not a great trade-off to me. If on the other hand we think that, it's about a 50-50 thing, it depends on what app you have, you may want to do these things, then...
I mean, I'll high horse again because it's a thing I do a lot. Anybody who has these methods not idempotent is a bad developer. Like your posts, your patches, they all need some sort of transaction ID, operation ID, a version number, some way that you can tell if it's getting replayed because replays happen. So all operations should be safe. They're just only safe. These are only safe if you put the work in. And so this is calling this method makes by default in the template makes lazy developers less likely to have double data bugs. There's no inherent unsafeness or the operations are unsafe until you make them safe, but everyone should make them safe.
Okay, I buy that part. Then to Steve's earlier point, he said like the only point to make these APIs is if we put them in the template. You're saying this because you think it's just not discoverable?
Yes, because if it's not effectively a default through the template, then everybody will just run into bugs. Like we just don't improve the product otherwise. And like I get what Jeremy's saying, that in theory that can be the case, but in reality, the person building the .NET application is not necessarily the one who owns the backend service that it's calling. You can't generally impose your like rules like that on the other team that provides the service.
Indeed, I have no problem with it being in the template. I'm just saying if we're changing the default runtime behavior, yeah. I was contesting the notion that that everyone always needs these. But if you want to change the runtime behavior, you need different API here. And personally, I don't care if the template changes. It just shows people that things here and they can delete it if they don't want it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's a function of like again, how many people would want this line, and then how disruptive is it if we turn it on for everybody, right? Because the problem is, we ship once a year, right? So there's plenty of stuff. You also don't want to live in a world where the project template becomes this, almost hall of shame of bad decision making, where we just add more and more stuff to override bad defaults, right? So if we think the default is good, if we think most people should have this as a starting point, therefore it belongs in the template, I'm totally cool with the direction we're heading. If we are only using it, we're putting it in the template because we don't think we can change the default, I would just question, are we really sure we can't change the default? That's why I'm asking. But I have no problem with the API shape. I think the one-liner, the three-liner that we have proposed here seems reasonable to be added to the template. But yeah, to Steve's point, we should probably make sure that the template folks are okay with that as well.
Should we preemptively add enable for just in case we start changing defaults in the future?
I would wait for that because you might want different behavior there. You could, for example, I would imagine a world if we change the default, you might want to just have a enable for everything. It would be different from the two ones that I proposed. Just inverting them, I don't think about it.
Yeah, I was only suggesting the one that you have to specify the methods.
Yeah, that might be.
It just feels like if anybody's contemplating changing the defaults, it feels like the escape hatch. If nobody thinks we're actually going to change runtime defaults, then it's probably not necessary because presumably these options don't go from an application into a library and then get messed with at multiple levels, and so the enable is only needed if the defaults are not everything enabled. Sounds like nobody's saying to add it, so seems approved as is.
Does this capture what we said?
I would just like to additionally discuss with the team whether we want to make these methods chainable, meaning that they return HTTP retry strategy options instead of void. I think we will discuss it while implementing the API.
Yeah, if you make them chainable, either way works. Alrighty, then we're done with this one. Thanks for entertaining us and explaining it to us. Alrighty, then on to the next one. Greg, that's your puppy, I think.
Yes. Okay, so a while back we already reviewed the tokenizer stuff, all interfaces, and part of it was the abstractions we introduced, which is the tokenizer abstract class. And recently we have added 2 concrete tokenizers here, which is we are reviewing today. So I omitted all abstraction implementation from this proposal because we already reviewed those. And we want just to review the specific things that is specific for these tokenizers. One thing I want to mention before we go here is all names, parameters, or properties or whatever here, I picked it up from the Hugging Face, tokenizer interfaces. So, but of course, we are open, to change any names here if it make more sense. Yeah. So let's start with the first tokenizer we adding here is word piece tokenizer, and this is basically a tokenizer work on the boundaries of one word only. So we are introducing, not introducing, we have a create method, which is similar to what we have with other tokenizers. We decided before that any tokenizer need to be created will be created through a factory method like create or create async or similar things. So this create methods is taking the parameters either the vocabulary file path or vocabulary stream, and it can take the pre-tokenizer. If need to be pre-tokenized differently than the default one, and it can take normalizer if you need to add some normalization before executing the encoding. Also, it supports special tokens. If unknown or classification token or separator token or whatever. You can specify it here. Also, it specifies specifically the unknown token because this can be used explicitly. While not finding a match in the vocabulary, so we will use the unknown token at that time. We have a parameter is called continue subword prefix. So this is a string which is you can prefix the subword which is in the middle of the word. If you have one word split into 2 parts, so the first part and second part, but it's just at the end it's one word. So second part will be prefixed with this string. And this is to distinguish about is it beginning of the word or it's continuation of the word. Yeah. Last one taking here is the max input character per word. This is also is a parameter that it decide about if you got a word which is greater than this max, so it will not be handled and it will be encoded as unknown. So this is how this tokenizer work. So yeah, so all properties here is just matching the parameters we are passing to the create method. Nothing special here.
So 2 things that I have about the creates.
Mhm.
One, we have the guideline that says once you have more than 2 defaulted parameters, you should have an overload that removes all the defaults other than the cancellation token. And for 2, you put create async with a stream, but you didn't also overload it to take the file path. Was that intentional?
You mean the create async? Okay.
Because you have create from a
Yeah,
stream and create from a path, but you only put create async from the stream.
I already have it actually in the code. I just like somehow missed it in the proposal here, but we have it, yes. We have the overload that it takes the file path for create async. Sorry, I missed it.
Did we leave out the nicer on IntelliSense overloads for other tokenizers, or should we have them here?
I think they already exist. You have one that makes just a stream and just.
What do you mean they exist? Isn't this a new type?
Oh, this. Oh, maybe it is. I thought it was. I was just clicking around the other types.
Okay.
I don't remember.
All right, so.
I don't know what's
Then,
up
yeah.
with APIs of the net. Extremely painful. Everything is.
Yeah. As I hit Control F5, it finally popped up the search box. If only we knew the person who owned that site.
I don't know. If it doesn't work, it's not me. If it is working, then I wrote it. No, I don't know. No, the tokenizer is new. No, actually,
Yeah.
it's not. It already exists.
I see a word tokenizing transformer in ML, but not word tokenizer. Or sorry, word piece tokenizer.
Oh, I see it. Maybe your side is just slower.
I had already typed word toke, so it dropped the piece. Is this a new type, Tarek, or did it maybe accidentally get built in a way that MO already ingested it?
Which you are talking about word piece or?
Yeah, word piece tokenizer.
Yeah, this is all a new type. It's newly introduced.
Right,
it didn't exist before.
So MO's just picked it up from
a
early build.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my general question is, I mean, I might have asked this before, but like, I'm kind of uneasy when we have these overloads that is like, 6+ arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we want to have just an options type? Share that between create and create async, and then when we add a new thing to it, we just property in one place.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean,
I know we haven't done it for any of the other tokenizers, but like it does seem like a very painful.
Yeah, I mean,
we
can start establish this pattern here, but I mean, like, because like most of the parameters here are defaulted. So actually, looking at the codes that consuming really these tokenizers, I mean, they always use the default parameters. That's why didn't care much about like optimizing that. But adding like option for it, I mean, like, yeah, this will work too.
I mean, it's more like in how many places do you have it, right? Like if you want to add another thing now, you have to effectively create 3 more methods.
For word piece specifically, I'm not expecting things will be added later. But for the other one, which is called BERT tokenizer later, which is also based on word piece, it might need that. So it's, yeah.
I mean, I'm not a domain expert. If you are very certain that we mostly add new tokenizer types and not arguments to existing tokenizers, I can't challenge that. I take your word for it. It's just that when I see overload pairs like this, it just means next time we add one, you know, we have to add effectively 3 new overloads, right? Every time we add a new thing to it, and then every time we duplicate the defaults, and then it just seems like a very messy way to evolve an API compared to, let's say, oh, we add a property to one type, right? Like that's
I would say, yeah, I mean, let's be in safe side, and like let's have like options and avoid this all parameters. Yeah.
Well, presumably, because I saw it says the BERT tokenizer is going to extend WordPiece tokenizer.
Right.
Like, would we do that by saying BERT options extend WordPiece tokenizer options? Like, we don't often have the options types for inheritable things.
I would say because BERT need specific things that it's not WordPiece specific. So I would say we will have options specific for BERT tokenizers. So we'll have like WordPiece options and BERT options, for example. But
And
it's
you would just
two
take
different
both of them
things.
and create?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I get your point, Jeremy. It's equally messy.
Yeah.
It's just messy the other way around. I mean, as soon as you have option types and as soon as you have inheritance hierarchy between the tokenizers, you kind of want an inheritance relationship between the option types as well. But
yeah, it's like, you know, the options type we mess with most these days is like, you know, the JSON serializer options, but like there's no inheritance there. It just is the one thing. And we have the JSON reader options, and it is the one thing. Like, I can't think of a BCL thing that we have an options type with inheritance.
True, but we also don't really have. I mean, the problem is that all of stuff.
I just mean to look for precedence.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm saying I don't know what the precedence model is.
Yeah. But
okay,
yeah, this is a perfect example where head starts to bleed. It's like, okay, no, we. I mean, look at this.
Why is Chinese special?
Because it's special for this tokenizer. It depends on the vocab files that it used there, and if
Right,
they need.
Does Chinese mean Chinese, or does it mean CJK?
No, it means Chinese, but the implementation is specific in the specific. I mean, like using specific Unicode ranges for handling these Chinese characters. Yeah, and this is what Hugging Face is calling it. It's specifically calling Chinese.
Yeah.
So with that false, it will still tokenize Korean.
Yes, if it is outside the ranges that it used there, yeah, it would be.
I'm just making sure we're not building an R API, an overly reaching concept from a lower level thing. If Chinese really means everything outside the BMP, then we should not use the same word they do. We should use the correct word. If it really means Chinese, which I don't know that actually that has meaning because Chinese and Japanese share an alphabet set.
I can double check these ranges to make sure that it's all specific Chinese characters.
Yeah, like if the Unicode Consortium calls the ranges they're doing Chinese, then sure. But just because the library calls it Chinese doesn't mean that we should be using the same name.
Is it a single contiguous set, or is it multiple distinct ranges?
It's not continuous. Yeah, it's like 4 ranges or something like this. Yeah, I can double check the ranges offline. I mean, and I can. So if it is not specific for Chinese, so maybe you can call it CGK at that time. But
whatever it is, it needs to be. It should be accurate and politically correct. if it's everything in, because I think Unicode uses CJK as a term, and so if it is everything CJK, then CJK is fine, and if it's everything outside the BMP, then we need a different word.
Do we use the word SAP, PAD, and CLS elsewhere?
That's a good question, but what the replacement if we will not use strip?
I
Is
mean,
it separator, padding, and something else for CLS?
that's kind of what I was hitting at. Yeah, normally we spell things out. I mean, I assume SEP is the separator token. Yep, that's what it says here.
Oh, and classifier is CLS.
Yeah.
I was
CLS
thinking
is clear
clear line
screen.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly, that's what I was
I think
thinking.
it helped to spell those out,
Yeah.
just like we did with unknown.
Yeah, we didn't call it the UNC token.
Regarding the CGK again, I pasted some comment in the chat here. So it can contain non-Chinese things, but it's not specifically still like covering all CGK. This is the comment. I mean, like it exists in the Hugging Face. I'm not sure what name we can use here because it's not CGK and it's not really Chinese.
Well, needs work until you come up with a good name.
Yeah, that's
It's that comment kind of reads like it's saying that it supports CJK, but CJK is not all Asian language characters. And so there's some nuance where the modern Japanese and modern Korean alphabets may not be converted, but things in CJK would. It might be good to get very explicit details on what the technical ranges are, and we could compare it to the Unicode spec to see.
Because reading that comment, it sounds like they're saying we're ignoring the CJK block, but note that there are Japanese characters that do not exist inside the block called the CJK block. And if it's ignoring the CJK block, then we should call it CJK block.
Yeah.
But not Chinese.
I'm convinced now if we call it CJK will be better. Yeah, because like I saw other comment it says this explicitly.
CJK is what?
It's Chinese, Japanese, Korean.
Yeah, that's what it stands for, but it is itself a term from Unicode.
Yeah,
it's just a group of all these.
CJK Unified Ideographs 4E00 through 9FFFF.
Still no Klingon. Very disappointing.
And there's other CJK blocks too, like the radical supplement and stuff, which exist at other ranges.
but it's still CGK, right? Mm-hmm.
Is it?
I'm not that familiar with that section of the Unicode spec. I just know that there's multiple different ranges that have the name CJK in them.
Right. I mean, okay.
And so that's where I think it would be good to like get the actual ranges listed. We can compare it to the Unicode spec and that will help us make an informed decision on what a good name is, whether it's CJK or potentially something else.
Yeah, for sure, it will not be outside CGK, for sure. But the only thing that I'm not sure of is like if it will not cover the whole CGK.
Right, but so if it's, blocking just the range, or ignoring, I guess, the range 4E00 through 9FFF, then at least Wikipedia calls that the CJK Unified Ideograph block. So we can use a long name like that to say, basically, we want to point and say, this is the Unicode character set that's being ignored here. Without having any governments be mad at us for picking a wrong word.
And remember, a good name only has to be 80%.
Yeah, which is CGK will cover that.
100% correct names are usually.
Yeah, and we can have we can have some remark on the doc telling like what ranges we are looking at and.
What would the name then be? Chinese? Sorry, tokenized AJ. What was this? CJK?
Chinese, Japanese, Korean.
I mean, more like, what would we name the parameter then? Would it just be CJK?
CGK, just CGK.
Capital C, lowercase JK?
Presumably, we already have a reference to CJK in our character ranges somewhere.
It would still be tokenized CJK chars or something else?
It's not. It depends on like what you mean by char. I mean, it should be a good point at the end. But
yeah, I mean, the only reason why I think chars is kind of okay is because that's what the type in .NET is called. But yeah,
right.
it has its own problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like this contains all of the unified ideographs, the radical supplement, but is missing the ideographic description characters, the symbols and punctuation, some of the compatibility sets, and some of the compatibility ideographs, but it does include some of the compatibility ideographs.
Eric, do we not have in our Unicode classifiers, do we not have a thing that says like what blocks they belong to? I'm looking to see if we already named CJK.
Yeah, I don't think we have the what we call it scripts. I mean, which I don't think we have this today. It exists on Windows, so. I
looks
would
like
say
we have a thing called Unicode ranges under System Text Unicode, and that one uses capital C, lowercase j, lowercase k.
So basically, what you would expect, yeah.
Well, really, it was if we cased it differently somewhere else, we should go with consistent casing, and we went with good .NET casing.
Yeah, because it wasn't crypto.
Entschuldigen, leider spreche ich nicht English.
Nice try. Jeremy is trying to wash his hands off the crimes that were committed in namespace. In fairness, that happened mostly before. All right, so then I think that covers that part of the conversation. We then scroll down to the other methods here and code to IDs and friends.
So we're expanding all of the SEP, pad, CLS,
Yeah,
etc. Yeah.
separator, padding, token. Sorry, separator, padding, and classification. So be fine with strip accents? Is it only accents or any form of?
Oh, it's accent. No, accent, not all punctuation.
Will that have an impact on Arabic vowels
Yes.
and Hebrew vowels?
Yes. Any
Diacritic.
Yeah.
Are those
any
considered-
diacritics.
As a speaker of one of those languages, would you consider those to be accents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it impact things that aren't accents like diacritics, which accents are a subset of for the Unicode spec?
Oh yeah, in the in the bike
Well,
shedding mode.
No, I mean this is because this is all about character ranges and stuff, so it's making sure that we're using the same terms that Unicode does.
Right.
And
Right.
giving predictable behavior.
Because if we say accent, but it really means Unicode diacritics, then we start stripping Unicode diacritics, then people will be like, "Whoa, this was unexpected."
Yeah.
What is different between the accent and diacritics in your context here?
I think he's saying that
there's a
in
number.
Unicode there's a subset superset relationship. So if you say accents, but then you end up stripping them only when you have, if you strip them in either case, you strip more than.
Right. So like accents include things like most of the marks people are familiar with, like the caret symbol over an A, or the little
which is
sideways
this is what we
question mark.
strip to. Yeah.
But then diacritics also include some other things that aren't accents, like a dot over the letter. A single dot over the letter is a diacritic, not an accent for the Unicode spec.
Okay, so Unicode have the composition and decomposition of every letter. So if you decompose the letters, so all of them will be the same, accents and diacritics. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so we're removing diacritics, which include accents, not just accents.
Yes.
So I guess what you're saying is rename it to strip diacritics then?
Yeah, or combining characters might be a better word if that's what it's actually doing. Because that's the other aspect is there's accented characters, diacritic characters, and then there's combining marks.
Okay, so
as well.
So accents here exactly in Unicode is called the non-spacing marks and spacing combining marks. Non-spacing mark like the vowels, I mean, we are talking about here, like diacritics here. And there is also spacing combining mark, which is marks that it takes space on the language, but
is this only stripping it out when it's written in a combining form, or if somebody writes the single character grav A, is it going to turn it into an A without the grav?
Yes, it will turn it A without the grav. So yeah, the part of this Tokenizer is doing normalization, which is decompose the letters before processing it.
Does Unicode have a term? I mean, Unicode has a term for everything, but is that normalization?
Yeah, it's normalization, but it's specific part of normalization, not everything.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Does Unicode even use the term accent?
Actually, it used non-space marks in general.
The glossary has a definition for accent, and it has a definition for, and it refers you to diacritic, which is the overarching thing that also includes tones or other linguistic information. And that references you to the combining characters and non-spacing marks, as well as
Yes.
the pre-composed characters, which are, A with the accent mark that
That's right.
isn't an individual A plus combining character plus accent mark.
Okay, so yeah, I'm fine if we want to go with diacritic. I mean, the only thing is like I'm not sure how many users are familiar with something called diacritic. Diacritic is more technical than accent, but yeah, I mean, as Tanner saying that diacritic is more accurate definition.
What would it do for something like the family emoji that contains man plus child, which is man combining character child?
Okay, so when you decompose those, you will get what type of characters? Is it non-space marks?
Yeah, there's the emoji that looks like a man and a child together is only represented by the man emoji, the a non-spacing combining mark, and the child emoji. And you can add additional ones to change skin tones or genders or things like that. But it's technically 3 Unicode characters at minimum to represent a single visual emoji.
Okay, so yeah, I mean like this is going to remove any non-space marks. So if this is decomposed to some non-space marks, it will get removed.
So it's removing non-spacing marks, and it's normalizing some accented characters to the Latin and diacritic characters to the Latin form.
Yeah.
The base Latin form.
Mm-hmm.
So in the interest of time, it seems like something to discuss offline, because it does seem like somebody wants to pick up the Unicode thingy and wants to look up what options are. My point was mostly based on the discussion earlier that accent seemed like a colloquialism rather than a correct statement. I'm sure that we're okay with that, or that we, but it sounds like we should find a term that is
I'm fine with diacritic if everyone else is fine with it.
I mean,
that seems more accurate, but then there's still a concern of it sounds like it's removing more than just that.
yeah, I guess the feedback is more pick the technically correct term that still makes sense.
And ideally is
the
same as a term that we use elsewhere in the platform if we use the same term.
Yeah. The other question I had is like strip, is that the term we usually use? Other than, let's say, remove or exclude or skip?
Yeah, I'm fine. Whatever term works here, or to be consistent with other APIs. Do we have any API that strips stuff?
Right. And I've certainly used it in my own APIs, but I don't think I've seen it in the product. Context menu strip, yeah, I was asking.
Different strip.
I don't see it anywhere.
Check it out.
See it in the Java side. I don't think there's any core APIs that you.
Okay, yeah, we can change it to remove accents. It will be also okay.
Yeah, I would probably go with remove or trim or something. Trimming might not.
All right. So searching probably 2 versions ago, all the reference assemblies. System reflection metadata has a relock stripped, line num stripped, local sim stripped, debug stripped, and something in system runtime has a strip after obfuscation.
Yeah, these are all very native.
I don't see any as a parameter name.
Yeah. I mean, if we just judged by string, you know, usually we call things like this remove or. I would probably go with.
Or whatever word we go with.
Yeah.
Normalization seems like the closest thing to what it's doing, but it doesn't seem like it's quite Unicode normalization in one of the formally defined Unicode normalization forms.
The other question I have is like all the parameters that are prefixed with do. Is that the thing we normally do? Like do
Like what?
lowercase, do basic tokenization.
Yeah, this is another question about like we can go with our names. I mean, we don't have to say do. This is part of, but the term do is used as I mentioned about with Hugging Face. This is why I have it like this, but I'm not strong to keep it.
Yeah, I can't. I'm searching. I can't think of anywhere that we use do support, which is the linguistic term for how English is bad and
We can remove
goes in the
do.
verb
I
to do
mean,
everywhere.
we can say lowercase.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I mean, I would always just move it. I mean, it doesn't add anything. If you really want to convey an operation, I would probably say convert to lowercase. I mean, lowercase. I'm not sure what basic tokenization does.
Yeah, this is option that if somebody turn it off this one, it will turn off the rest of the other options, which is to turn off like the strip accents, turn off lowercasing and everything. I mean, it will not do any normalization on it. It's just like one switch on and off for the rest of the parameters.
Oh, you consider all of those advanced things basic?
Yes, right.
I see.
It's yeah, they call it basic because it removes like control characters from the string and stuff. This is why they call it basic.
I mean, if that's what it's called, I mean, it's an token specific or algorithm specific terminology. Fine with that.
Can you scroll the screen just for the because I'm seeing the API. Okay.
Oh yeah, like I'm still looking at that one on my other screen.
Okay.
All right. And anything else to say about those? and move forward now.
So we agreed about to have options instead of passing all of these parameters, right? I mean, it will be like pair to options or whatever.
I mean, I kind of feel like once you have that many parameters, you effectively want an option type, I think. The problem that Jeremy pointed out is that because you have an inheritance hierarchy between your algorithms, you kind of want to figure out how to design the option types. Because it, on the one hand side, yes, you could just have one per algorithm, and then they're not typed, or then they don't have a relationship with each other. But I don't know how to reason about this from a polymorphic standpoint. If there's value in the inheritance hierarchy because you want to treat one algorithm as the other, then maybe it makes sense to have the options somehow related as well, so you can have a common initialization routine, for example. But if that doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. If there's this, oh yeah, these 6 options don't really apply, well then inheritance hierarchies might be worse than having one.
Yeah. In your current BERT tokenizer configuration stratagems, I don't see a way that you can add a pre-tokenizer or a continuing subword prefix, or like you've extended word piece tokenizer, but you don't seem to share any of its options.
Yeah, because this BERT, I mean, tokenizer is really very specific how it works. I mean, like, because like you need to do some specific normalizations according to this parameters. I mean, and also pre-tokenization is always work with the word boundaries. So you have to pre-tokenize stuff as words to make it work.
So BERT is extending word piece, but none of the options of word piece can be specified when you use BERT?
If we got scenarios that it needed, yeah, we will need to add it at that time. This is why I said, like, for BERT tokenizer, maybe stuff will get added later. So far for the scenarios that we are supporting is not needed, but it doesn't mean that we will never run into scenarios that it needed later.
Yeah, I don't know what impact that would have on an options type or types. Feels complicated.
I mean, I'm not an expert, but just judging by like what's actually polymorphic, it seems there is a disconnect between effectively the polymorphic aspect of constructing something versus the polymorphic aspect of using something. Like the configuration options for all these tokenizers might be different, but then the way you consume them is very similar, so that's why the inheritance hierarchy makes sense.
Yeah, so you've shown nothing in word piece tokenizers virtual, so why is there inheritance?
I think that's a fair question.
Because it will inherit the default implementations for the stuff we don't need to overwrite. Part of it, like the encoding itself, is done by word piece inside, even if inside BERT tokenizer. And actually, it's BERT tokenizer is really word piece. I mean, technically, it's word piece tokenizer.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
So is nothing virtual in word piece because it's just using the virtuals from tokenizer?
Yeah.
And the operation status based decode on word piece tokenizer will make sense with BERT?
Yes, it's the same.
Okay, just again, nothing is marked as virtual, so I'm making sure we're not doing weird things. I don't know what in our universe is and isn't sealed. You wrote BERT as sealed, which probably makes sense. Should word piece have a private protected constructor so that it can't be third partied, or is it supposed to be third partiable? Like, is it an actual inheritable type, or is it tied to an implementation?
Yeah, I can see. I don't have a specific scenario in my head now. I mean, like, who will need to inherit word piece other than Bert? but it makes sense about like to open this for anybody need to do that, they can do it. So adding the protected constructor maybe makes sense here.
Well, adding a private protected constructor means no one can extend it other than you. As it is right now, with no declared constructors, it is extensible by anybody.
Yeah, I would say this is good.
But presumably there are constructors you didn't tell us about.
Well, so I think what he's showing us is more or less the effect in the references, right? Because if you look at APIs of .NET, where piece tokenizer has 0.
Then how does BERT set the properties on the base class?
But
when you instantiate BERT tokenizer, max input characters per word is going to have a value.
It throws a private constructor. Right?
I assume they're all internal, but because I don't index private.
Which means the type isn't really third-party extensible because nobody can create it with any of the options that it has.
That is right. Yeah, you can only construct it, but you can't extend. Effectively a closed type. Tokenizer has a public constructor, though.
I guess the fact that it you can't meaningfully inherit it means it doesn't matter if you do or don't seal it. Well, I guess it can't be sealed, but do or don't restrict it to single assembly implementation. You've basically done so by implementation.
I mean, it goes back to our general vibe of inheritance. Like, if we could do it all over, it probably would make sense if most of them wouldn't be actually, if the inheritance wouldn't be visible. All the tokenizers had a thing that does the tokenization, but that thing is just an abstraction and you implement it however you want, then, you know, you could have some inheritance hierarchy and implementation that obligate surface. You know, in this case, it doesn't really matter. You treat, as a user, you treat them all as distinct units and you just construct the one you want. In that sense, I think it answers the original question of like, should we have polymorphic relationship with options? The answer is no. The only reason we have inheritance here is because we want to share some implementation with about.
Ish. Like the BERT level doesn't redefine the code. No, so somebody in their API can say, I now need a word piece tokenizer. And now BERT gets to go there. So sharing an implementation definitely leaks out into the color.
Yes. But I mean, as I said, like that's mostly for, I mean, yes.
Right. So I guess maybe my question is, do we really want this hierarchy to show up, or should you just have an internal method that they both get to call?
I mean, keep in mind there's already existing. All of them would exist.
Fair enough. It's just if somebody's looking at BERT, does it make sense for them to read the property unknown token? Or is that?
Yes. It makes sense to read stuff.
I guess
like
unknown token is the one thing that actually got lifted up to the continuing subword prefix. If that doesn't even make sense to ask on a BERT, then maybe it should just directly extend tokenizer and redefine the things that it's
still relevant to call it in BERT. I mean, like, because like it's, yeah, continuation prefix, this is part of the vocabs. I mean, so the vocab terms will have this prefix, has to be. But again, I'm not like, no, I'm not sure about like whoever is calling it, what kind of, yeah, maybe is doing some specific things after tokenization. I mean, getting to know. I mean, language models can use this to detect about like if they have any token, is it beginning of the word or it's middle of the word. So it makes sense to call it, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, our docs don't show the derived types. Yeah. Right. So then, scrolly.
Right. So encode to IDs is just extra overloads, which is exactly like what we have in the tokenizer class, except that this one, because like it's handling the add special tokens, so I'm adding just one parameter for it for this overloads. So this for overloads actually matching exactly the other one, except with extra parameters that is called add special tokens.
Oh, I see. And the special tokens being the one that we talked about renaming the classification, padding, and separator tokens.
Yes, right. Yeah, stuff like that.
If you set this to false, then the only thing this thing is ending up doing is normalization.
Okay, so if you set the special token to false, so yeah, I mean, so re-tokenizations will not break on that. So like, you know, if you have like text have unknown in the middle, right? I mean, if you have this true, I mean, add special tokens means that you need to handle this as special case. But if you didn't set it, so it will be part like normal, like any other word. So it can be stripped into like open bracket, well, and then UKM and the close bracket. It will be split into 3 parts. Yeah.
I think we asked this before, like all these tokenizers return an IREAD-only list of T.
Yeah, this is like the other things we had before. I mean, nothing changed here.
The read-onliness was because they might cache. Is that right?
Yeah.
Who's them? The caller or the implementation?
Implementation. So it might hand out the same list to multiple consumers, I believe is the rationale. Am I making that up, Tarek, or is that right?
For this tokenizers, actually, we are not really doing caching at all.
Okay.
But I'm used like I read only this. I mean, like, because this is what we use with the abstractions actually.
But the abstractions use it because some of the tokenizers do cache.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think originally when we discussed this during first time, we went into different options, and even like regardless of caching or not, we decided to go with the I read only list. And we have another I remember now about like encode to IDs, I think, which can work with spans. Let me, for people who need to optimize. Let me just No, actually, in the we always return I read only list. Yeah.
And it's proper read only, or is it just in that task to I read only?
It's I read only list of int. Yeah.
No, I meant more like what's the actual runtime type? Is it an int array, or is that an actual thing that
It's like actual list. Yeah. We internally we use list of t internally before we return that.
be aware that callers can cast a
Yeah, it's up to them because we don't use it after we return it. I mean, so they can do whatever they want.
In the next set of things, do we like token IDs 0 and 1, or do we want token IDs and additional token IDs?
Yeah, I mean, do we have cases like this before? I mean, like passing two lists and
I mean, normally you don't have really 0 or 1 unless you just end up with like something like a param situation where you have overloads to avoid the param stuff. Normally you would name them to what they are, like, you know, starting set and then set or something.
yeah. So what do we call it? I mean, instead of 0 and 1, I mean, like call it.
I don't know, what
First
was
and
Jeremy
second.
just saying? Said something like start. Didn't you say like token?
I said like token IDs and additional token IDs, since the second one is optional.
Perfect. And then we're cool with the shape of the operation status one. Don't we usually say destination or something like that?
Sorry, which one again?
The second one here, the one that is operation status one.
Yeah, this is
destination or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And outint written should be outint values written, I believe. It's written, chars written, or values written as appropriate. It's a consider, so consider.
Consider it. All right. Anything else on this one here? Get special tokens mask.
And I assume we're going to continue with the 0, 1 becomes IDs and additional IDs, and then the next destination
right
buffer becomes destination. And already has special tokens seems like a weird parameter name, but I can't think of a better one.
Yeah, again, about like this is the same term used in phase.
As a reminder, we don't care about the signature in Hugging Face. We want it to make sense for .NET developers.
Right. I mean, but it does actually work on the special tokens. So special tokens name is correct. I mean,
and the idea is just perf to avoid the re-encoding.
What you mean by
like the reason this parameter exists is to avoid the thing having to re-encode the token IDs to make sure that it doesn't or like yeah, what happens if I set it to true versus false? Why are you not doing anything? You just forward the call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you added if already has special tokens with false, so this I mean the API will add those special token for you.
Oh, they're adding it to the sequence. I see.
Yeah.
Got it. What if I lie? It just doesn't get.
Yeah, it's up to you. You can lie, but you will pay for that.
And that's when
I assume this is a
it's like
double encode.
Yeah, exactly right. You just
Yeah, it could be the same thing. We change it in the other overloads.
all right, factory methods.
Oh yeah, this is basically what I'm looking for is if we can come up with better names here. But yeah, so this is actually, I mean, a factory method, which is create a pre-tokenizer, which is based on the regex pattern at the end. So the first one, which is want to create pre-tokenizers, which can split at either white spaces or punctuations. I'm listing the regex button above. I mean, just to give some idea about like what we are using here.
Backslash lowercase w is any white space.
Yeah, any white space.
Was it word
W is a word character.
That's what I thought.
Well, yeah, it's a word boundary, which is will split on the will stop at white space. Yeah.
Either a word boundary or it is
a punctuation.
What are braces in regex? Nothing. Is we looking for a brace P, or is that a brace PP? Just brace P, brace meaning.
It's regex. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Not everybody.
This lowercase, the slash p means what follows in the braces is a Unicode category, and p defines one of the Unicode categories. I believe punctuation, but I need to look it up.
Sure. So that's what p by itself. Okay. I see. Yeah. Okay. Either saying word boundary.
Yeah, p is any kind of punctuation character. And then there are more fine-grained categories for dashes and, brackets and stuff like that. So that first regex is basically saying any positive number of word characters or any punctuation.
I mean, the names are pretty good.
Do we need to suffix with pre-tokenizer because it's called from the pre-tokenizer class? I mean, should we remove the suffix there?
We
The
like just
word.
create white space or punctuation, create word or non-word.
Right.
I mean, you already have the thing. Why would do the
I think it just means removing the pre-tokenizer suffix from those three names on the screen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do we have existing factory methods?
No. This is.
So these are all net. So
this is new. Yeah.
So there's no prior article, but then yeah, then I think it makes sense to not repeat yourself. Pre-tokenizer dot create pre-tokenizer. Yeah.
I still don't love the word or non-word, but I don't have a better.
Yeah.
Because it's. Yeah. If it were actually word or non-word, I would expect that the regex would just be /w plus or not /w plus. The fact that there's a /s in there is weird.
Yeah, this one is the pattern is picked up again. I mean, from the
no, I get the I understand the pattern is fixed.
Right.
It's the description of it is. If I were to write a regex for word or non-word, that's not the regex that I would write. So that since the regex is fixed, it makes me wonder about the name.
What's the or supposed to mean here?
It basically the regex is going to search for the first occurrence of either any number of any positive number of word characters, or the first occurrence of any number of things that aren't word characters or spaces.
Right.
So whichever one of those things it finds first, it'll
match. Yeah.
So saying every sequence of word characters becomes a token, and then every sequence of things that aren't word characters or spaces is a different token?
Yes. So if you had the cat is in the house, this is going to create this will match the, and then it'll match cat in. It's not going to match any spaces because the space is included in the second one. But then if that sentence ended with a period, there would be, so each word would be a match, and then the period would be its own thing because that's neither a word character nor a space.
Right, so it's saying words become tokens and non-words become tokens.
Yeah.
But it's having opinions that non-words does not include white space.
Right. So it's a slightly different meaning of word than regex, which is the part of the.
But the first one says white space or punctuation, but the regex is word or punctuation.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. That's weird.
So are we using or in the same sense, but across the two of them?
That name is wrong. It's not white space. If that regex is correct, that's not white space. That would be word or punctuation. If it were white space, it would be a /s, not a /w.
Right.
The last one is also strange too, because /S means not white space.
Which means it's using any run of non-white space is a token. So it's actually a non-white space pre-tokenizer.
Yeah.
Which I can sort of understand the leaving the non off. It's just saying all white space is a token boundary.
Yeah, the naming is like, are we talking about the boundaries or are we talking about like what it match?
But the first one is definitely inconsistent, to Jeremy's point. Because punctuation is matching the right side of that OR, but white space is not matching the left side of that OR.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
So is the regex right or is the name right?
I assume the regex is right.
Yeah. So would we create non-white space or punctuation?
I think it would be create word. If we're gonna, if the naming for the second one is correct, then I think the first one would be create word or punctuation pre-tokenizer.
I think that makes sense.
So for Steve's, the cat is in the whatever period. They're going to match the same thing because the non-white space or the non-white space non-word character was a punctuation character.
Right, but if they would end it with two exclamation points, the first one would return 2 different tokens for each exclamation point, whereas the second one would return a single token for both exclamation points together.
And how do control characters fit into this? I'm just looking at Unicode categories.
Control characters would be included in not word, not space, but they would not be included in punctuation.
Right. So the second one would consider a punctuation character followed by a control character followed by a punctuation character to be 1 token.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last one, we're still cool with white space, or do we want to call it create white space?
That's how I feel. Non-white space matches the regex, but white space is the thing that you want to tokenize on. So
Yeah.
they both make sense in a way.
Is it the same difference between split and match in regex? What do you mean about split at or match at? I mean, so it's 2 different.
Is there any sensible world where anybody would want to capture the white space? Like, in fact, I guess it would be only the white space. I can't think of one.
For this purpose, probably not.
Yeah.
Because that would be the only reason that I'd think that we would need the distinction between the white space and the non-white space. If somebody ever positively wanted the white space, we wouldn't have a name for it.
And it's
we have the actual regular expressions in the docs, in the XML comments for these, right, Tarek?
Say it again. Sorry, Stephen.
If we don't already have the actual regular expressions in the XML comments for these, we should add them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So remind me what the pre-tokenizer does here, because you're not giving it text, you're giving it a read-only dictionary of something. So is this as tokens are found in the next stage, it asks if they're a special token?
Okay, so while you're creating any tokenizer, and not any tokenizer, specific tokenizers, you need to decide about like if this tokenizer work with the special tokens or not, regardless of this pre-tokenizer at all, right? So part of the pre-tokenization here about like, if you use the first one, I mean like break on like word or punctuation, we passing the special tokens about like if we need to take care about the special tokens while we are running this. So it's 2 things, 2 steps. I mean like special tokens should be split first, regardless of what we are doing here, and then apply this regex to split the rest of the text. So, for example, about like if you have sentence and they have like unknown special token in the middle, right? And you want to split it at like the first part and then unknown special token and the rest of that sentence into three parts. So special tokens passing here is telling like, yeah, those the special token I need to split at those boundaries, right? And after that, about like, the rest of the parts of the sentence, we will run the regex, specified with everyone here, to split it into more smaller units. I'm not sure if this is clear, Jeremy, or
I no, because I still don't know what this dictionary means.
okay. This is a dictionary that it's okay. This contains a list of the special tokens that can be
Sure,
used.
but until you tokenize, you don't know whether an input is a token or not.
No, the input is always the input text. I mean, it's also pre-tokenizer have inside it about like a method that it does that takes the input text, which is to do the pre-tokenization on it.
Right. So let's, if you call the create word or punctuation pre-tokenizer and you give it a dictionary somehow of the
Right.
BART special tokens that we were talking about. Sorry, BERT.
Yeah.
Open square bracket UNK close square bracket is not considered one token by this tokenizer. So is it completely ignored?
If it is part of the special tokens dictionary that you passed, it will be 1 unit. If it is not,
okay.
So
if I have a word that says cat open square bracket UNK close square bracket dog
Right.
with no spaces,
Right.
does that
Yeah,
find the special token in the middle?
Right. Yeah, it will split the bracket unknown close bracket as separate token for it. If
So
it is if
for
you
each is
specify it,
every key and uses that as a pre separator.
yeah, you split. I mean, like if you have special tokens, so we split at the boundaries of this special tokens first, and then apply the other pre-tokenization on the rest. It's still unclear, right?
I mean, I sort of like I sort of get the logic. I don't understand how anyone would ever use this correctly. But I guess I don't care.
I think it's the domain specific knowledge you just have. Yes.
Right. So I guess really my only question is something called encoder. I would expect to be an encoding object or a func maybe, but this is.
Oh yeah, I mean,
so should this be special tokens? Special tokens map? Special like?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the name encoder is wrong here. Sorry.
Just special tokens then?
Oh, it's just the special tokens. Yeah. It's just a list, like at the end.
Okay. Right, I put everything. I didn't make all the edits. But I left a lot of comments here because some of the edits were other. But most. Done then. There's something else.
I mean, we have the outstanding accent versus diacritic versus some other meaning that the thing actually has, and
yes.
And if we landed on the CJK, then...
Yeah, that's one of those things. I just left it as feedback. You know, it's just pick the right term, I guess.
So on the ones that we removed the do prefix, are we happy with what that's going to look like if we just remove the do's? Because it was like do lowercase, so now it's just going to say bool lowercase. Is that going to be obvious as to whether it means the input is lowercase versus it should normalize everything to lowercase?
Yeah, I'm fine with saying convert to lowercase. That's
I mean, that's. I'm just making sure that once we remove the do's, that we're happy with what the property says and whether somebody can reason about the state that they're in. It's like I could believe if it just says bool lowercase, that means only load the lowercase words out of the vocab path or out of the vocab file. And so I can't tell if this is talking about a rule that it wants when loading the vocab or a rule when it's processing my input or what.
Yeah,
So-
having do is clarifying the action.
Not really, because it's
It is.
given that the argument right before it is a vocab database to load. I don't know if it's talking about vocab or a thing that's modifying the loading process or a thing that's modifying the later tokenization process.
You are creating the tokenizer. I mean, so this will apply on the tokenizer operation.
Again,
is
the
use the
parameter
tokenization.
immediately before it was a vocab database. So by locality, it felt to me like it modified the vocab database.
Yeah. How about the ones that are just highlighted?
Yeah, I mean, the docs will still have to say that when it's doing the tokenization, it's treating or converting the input to lowercase before looking for a hit. But
Yeah.
because it's, I don't think there's a good way to clarify it in the parameter that it's talking about the input that it will process later versus the something it did when loading the vocab.
Fair enough.
So I think those are both reasonable things to do for the parameters and properties.
The only thing I extracted out was the options parameter because it applies to all of them. That would look like if you. So, yeah. Maybe we should take another pass once you changes because there's enough stuff going. Yeah, like with your 90%.
What is remaining here? I mean, just to
All the to-dos that I have here. So you need to make those changes. Then those refactorings here, you have to figure out kind of like what the term here is. Maybe we're happy with tokenized CJK chars, maybe that's fine. And then the strip accents one. Might want to something else there. Diacritics, for example. And then this one was the options. Did I leave anything out?
I'm just wondering about when we can do that because we need to apply these changes this week.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what that timeline might be.
So yeah, we can resolve this offline. I mean, on the chat.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, then see you later.